Progressive.com. You guys can be a part of Unsportsmanlike Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line at 888-SAY-ESPN. It's not college football season without the delicious taste of an ice-cold Dr. Pepper. College football, it's a pepper thing. If you missed any of the first hour of the show, go back on the podcast and listen. Eventful first hour talking about the Giants benching Jackson Dart. And now it's his team for the remainder of the season. We discuss whether or not a player in sports like Russell Wilson could play his way into the Hall of Fame and then play his way out of the Hall of Fame. That's a rare label to have. I literally cannot think of any other player in sports that at some point played their way into the Hall of Fame and may have played their way out of the Hall of Fame. Literally not one. I can't come up with one person that would have that potential label on them. Also, Jim Harbaugh, who is going to be Jackson Dart's opponent this week in the Chargers, and the regard that we think of him in right now. And CC made the point that outside of Patrick Mahomes, is there anyone in the league that you would say, I hold in higher regard than Jim Harbaugh? I certainly think there are some that many would say, including Andy Reid. And you're saying right now, in the moment, there is nobody outside of Mahomes that definitively 100% that you hold in higher regard, player or coach, than Jim Harbaugh, correct?
That is correct.
Which is, I think it comes off as a bold statement. If you dive into it, sure, there could be a couple of disagreements, but that's how good Harbaugh is. He's a certainty. He's been good everywhere. But you heard some of the audio there with the familiar voice of Jerry Jones, of course. We had been mentioning, we haven't heard much from him. No bold statements recently. He's not doing his job. He's not leading the circus the way that he should. Yesterday, he was on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, leading up to the Packers and the Cowboys, the Micah Parsons Bowl on Sunday night, and had this to say about Micah.
Jerry, do you feel any extra competitive drive to win this week with Micah Parsons coming back?
Yes, I do. Of course, I have said this time and time again. I think the world of Micah. As an individual, and of course know him well, and I might say I wish him well, except it's obvious I don't this weekend in terms of Green Bay winning the ball game, and so it makes for an exciting time, and I'm anxious to see if over the years when I saw Michael's mitigated, when I saw teams playing pretty well. Which he's going to make some plays no matter how you play. But when I saw people play us well with Micah in the game, and it did happen, then obviously we'll be looking to try to run those kinds of plays.
He just has to take that shot at the end, doesn't he? He starts out, I think, the world of Micah or Michael, whichever one he chooses that day. I don't want the Packers to win the ball game, but Micah's great, except for these times when we've seen teams take advantage of him, and that's what we're going to try to do because he's really not that great if you think about it. That's essentially what he did. That was a perfect compliment from Jerry Jones. Long-winded, but compliment. Micah's amazing. I think the world of him, but there's some deficiencies there that we hope to take advantage of.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. Was part of this move and this non-deal early partially because they don't think Micah's as good as everyone else does? I mean, normally you trade a player because the player is not worth your salary that you're giving that player, regardless of sport, right? We don't think player X can outperform the contract.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But what you're taking from his comments would lead to that.
Right, but whenever you break up with somebody, do you really sing their praises afterwards? Are you really like,
no,
wow, yeah, Micah's the most versatile defensive player in the NFL. I can't believe we let him go. That's not what you're going to do.
No.
You're going to try and dig your heels further into your stance, which is that you did the right thing in moving on from him. But
part of it is on field. This is actually part of, as much as we've talked about the Micah stuff, this is something I don't believe we've talked about. Maybe they just simply didn't think he could outperform the contract because his contract is of a quarterback level.
$47 million a year.
Right.
If that was the case, then why did they engage in the negotiations up until the point that they did? Why didn't they move on from him earlier, around draft time, when you maybe could have elicited a better package for him?
Well, it's clear that they didn't think that it would cost them what it did. Remember, the negotiations broke down because Jerry felt like Micah reneged on it, and he went to his agent, and they tried to reopen a negotiation that Jerry thought was settled. So, yeah, to answer your question, they didn't think it was going to cost them as much as it ended up being. And so I can understand why they pivoted in the 11th hour on the eve of the season. You would like to see them get pen to paper a lot quicker than they did so they can have clarity earlier in the offseason. That was a miss from Jerry and Stephen Jones. But ultimately, I think they made a decision that they deemed in the best interest of their franchise. And the only way that they end up being wrong about the decision that they made is if the Green Bay Packers have success at the highest level of the sport in the next few years.
But isn't this why Jerry Jones is such a galvanic figure? Because ultimately...
Galvanic. Like, you think we're going to let you just slip that in as if that's not the word of the day?
Just let it rock out with the word of the day, man. You keep trying
That's the game. The whole game is we have to get it.
But he is. Hang on. Sudden, strong, or electrifying emotional or physical response. That's what Jerry Jones is. He's a galvanic figure. But what other owner and or front office takes you behind the scenes in negotiations the way Jerry Jones does, not only with Micah Parsons, but in general? We don't usually get to be privy to how these things go down. Usually it's kept behind closed doors. And with the Micah situation, it was very public. It was very messy. It was very toxic. And ultimately, egos were a huge portion of this. And so I don't know if they really thought that it was the best thing in the interest of their franchise, or it got to a point where there was just no reconciliation and they had to move forward because they were stuck.
But let's just ask the question, though. Will the Dallas Cowboys, with Micah Parsons, compete for a championship this year?
No.
Would the Dallas Cowboys, with Micah Parsons, be competing for a championship next year?
Probably not.
Okay, so if you're going to commit $120 million in guarantees to a guy over the next several seasons, and your team is going to be irrelevant when it comes to the championship conversation for the foreseeable future, can't you make the argument that it made sense to move on from him?
So
timing, though.
But question for you then. Do you think the Dallas Cowboys are going to compete for a championship this year with Dak and CD?
No.
Do you think the Dallas Cowboys are going to compete for a championship next year with Dak and CD?
No.
So why did they sign them?
Well, they signed those guys 2 years ago, right?
Why?
Because I'm sure that they thought that they could do it while Micah Parsons was still on a rookie contract. Now, they may have been wrong, but I believe that was the thought process. With CD, of course, it makes sense to be able to have a number one wide receiver to get the return on investment with your quarterback. And remember, Jerry Jones, at the end of it, is selling an entertainment product. It's hard to have a marquee in the NFL without a franchise quarterback. So the Dak Prescott contract negotiation, to me, is the aberration or the outlier when it comes to how the Dallas Cowboys do business, just because they need him more than the other ancillary pieces.
I just think that the same logic applies to the other two. Now, the flip side of this is because Micah's not there, the Dallas defense is not particularly good, to say the least. We've seen, multiple quarterbacks, Russ and Caleb, have massive games against them. Smalls, your quarterback in Jordan Love had a bad game against Cleveland.
Bad.
What do you need to see in this game to satisfy you as a Packers fan with his performance?
Well, obviously, first and foremost, they have to win the game. But I would love to see Jordan Love light up this defense like we saw other quarterbacks do. You just mentioned Caleb Williams. If Caleb Williams can go in there and have the best game, the best performance of his career as a Chicago Bear against this Dallas Cowboys defense, what is stopping Jordan Love from doing the same? Nothing. And you really need to come out after that consequential turnover that ultimately helped you lose the game against the Cleveland Browns and make a statement here. And maybe he doesn't view it that way. Maybe just getting the win is enough. But if everybody else is lighting up this defense, you should too. You absolutely should. The Cowboys have allowed 13 completions of 25 or more yards, including 5 passing touchdowns of more than 25 yards. I want to see Jordan Love with some big, explosive plays against this Dallas Cowboys defense.
Smalls, I believe that they absolutely can go out there and light up the Dallas Cowboys defense because every quarterback has done that. But in this game, as in life, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I look at this game through a different prism. The Packers are led by their defense. They are one of 2 teams through the first 3 weeks of the NFL to allow fewer than 20 points in all 3 of their ball games. Only them and the Seattle Seahawks have been able to do it. The Dallas Cowboys don't have their starting center. They don't have their starting right guard. They don't have their number 1 wide receiver. I don't know how the Dallas Cowboys offense puts up points. So if I'm the Green Bay Packers, if I'm head coach Matt LaFleur, I don't need Jordan Love to put the ball in the air 35, 40 times a game. I don't need to put the ball in harm's way. My defense is going to take care of everything for me.
So
they're
just
going
take
to
care of the
create
football?
field position and extra possessions. Take care of the football. Run the air out of it. Get out of there with a win. Get that bad taste out of your mouth. The first road trip of the season, you failed that test. Find a way to be able to get a road win in the conference and move on to next week. That needs to be the philosophy. That needs to be the approach. Because remember, I said this last week, and I think it bears repeating. When it comes to the Green Bay Packers offense, and Jordan Love specifically, I want the aggressiveness to come from the play caller, not from the quarterback. That's what I'm looking for.
I think it's a great point.
They made the mistake last week in putting the ball in the air when they didn't have to.
Right,
it was 3rd and 3. The Cleveland Browns offense hadn't moved the ball all game. Why on earth would you put the ball in the air with little to no time left in the game? It made no sense. You opened the door for them to come back and win that football game by deciding you were going to throw it. That was a mistake by Matt LaFleur as much as it was from Jordan Love.
So you guys are saying two separate things, though, leading to a Packers victory either way for the Packers and the Cowboys this weekend, the Micah Parsons Bowl in essence. Smalls is saying, hey, everyone else is running up the score, in essence, running up the stats against the Cowboys defense. Let me see Jordan Love get his 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I'm making up numbers, but okay. And Cece, you're saying, I don't care if Jordan Love doesn't throw the ball one time in this game. Win 3-0 if you need to. Just win the game and get the hell out of there. What's the right answer then? Because you're judging it, Smalls, and I get it, based on, no, I want to run up the fantasy stats. And you're judging it based on, no, if you're going to be a Super Bowl team, you shouldn't need to do that.
Well, it's a case-by-case basis, and with this week's opponent, because they're undermanned on the offensive side of the ball, which is their strength, and their defense is absolutely atrocious in stopping the run and stopping the pass. I just don't see the Dallas Cowboys' path to being competitive in this game if it's not including mistakes by the Green Bay Packers offense. And the way you mitigate risk on the offensive side of the ball in the NFL is by running the hell out of the football.
So, Smalls, are you okay with the hypothetical? I mean, obviously you want your team to win. But are you okay with the hypothetical of Jordan Love going 10 of 12 this weekend, 150 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, and Josh Jacobs having over 100?
Yeah, as long as they walk away with the win, I don't really care what the strategy is. However,
well, they always win in Jerry's world. They're 6-0.
And Jordan Love took this team in the playoffs into Jerry's world, and they destroyed them.
They always win in Jerry's world.
That's right. However, if Russ can light this defense up, if Caleb Williams can light this defense up and have those big, long, explosive plays, I want to see Jordan Love rip off 1 or 2 of them. Okay, I really would love it.
Then you don't want the 3-0 game. That's okay.
But can I ask you a question? How do we feel about Jalen Hurts as a quarterback?
I love him.
What did Jalen Hurts do against this defense?
But I don't look at Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love in the same capacity. Because here's why.
Go ahead.
What you said about Matt LaFleur, which is a great way of saying it, right? If you want to be risky, it has to come from the coach.
Okay.
I don't think you ever have to worry about that with Jalen Hurts.
Sure. I'm not saying it from that standpoint. What I'm saying is the style points should not matter. Go out there and do what it takes to get a win. The Eagles' offense was unstoppable against the Dallas Cowboys, but they didn't light up the scoreboard. Scored 24 points.
Yeah.
So go out there and be methodical, be deliberate with your drives, protecting the football. When you got to make a throw, make a throw. But ultimately, just do whatever it takes to get a win.
But you want,
and that's what I want. That's what I want to see more consistently from Jordan Love. Don't make the mistake that makes your team easy to beat, like you did in Week 3 against the Browns.
Yeah, if it's